It's an absolutely brilliant plastic. It is very, very difficult to weld to. Why insert whatever word would you build a boat? You just have that thing in your head where you look and you think, I made that. It's a little bit tricky to get this whole berth in the view. Vessels are designed to either keep water in or out. And do you want to see another bit of goodness regarding the berth? Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, that folks, that's what I'm talking about.
Whenever I'm off to find a sunset, a flavor of a memory, whenever all the stars above are shining, then I know I'll never be alone. Wherever all my wishes may be heading, a part of us will never leave. Oh, wherever in the world you may be hiding, in a while I know you're coming home. Tonight I know you will be coming home. A flavor of a memory, whenever all the stars above are shining.
And now for something completely different. These tanks, as some might remember, are made of HDPE or high density polyethylene. It's an absolutely brilliant plastic. However, it is very, very difficult to weld to unless you're welding it with exactly the same plastic that the tanks are made of. Apparently there are glues that you can buy that are exceptionally expensive from what I've been told by the tank manufacturers. I've got a few things to glue to these tanks. One of them are these bearers, and you might think, oh, it'll be fine, just put a bit of bonding adhesive down and it'll do the job, but this stuff apparently is very tricky to glue to. I have another challenge in needing to seal the water suction tubes. And so I've been in touch with a good Troy of Fixed Tech Products, and he's advised me that there is a technique that you can use to convert the surface of HDPE, which will allow, or certainly their product, Fix 15, to actually bond to the HDPE. He made a caveat that it's something that I will need to keep my eye on over the years, just to make sure it's still holding. In other words, it's not a perfect solution. However, the technique involves using an oxygen-rich flame to just heat the surface a little bit, which apparently just heats and changes the surface and surface tension of the HDPE, allowing things to bond better. I've got this fairly good pressured gas starter flame, and as you'll see, it gives a nice blue oxygen-rich flame as opposed to the orange carbon-rich flame, which is what's required to do the job of just changing that surface. I think that this is a subject that if anybody out there has had experience, by all means, leave some comments and share your knowledge, because it's certainly something that I've never come across before and I've never done before. Troy also mentioned that there's a real telltale watery image between the flame and the tank when you're doing it right. I can't say I saw that watery business. There's another test that can be done by putting a drop of water on there to see what the surface tension is. If it bubbles up, you haven't done it long enough, but if the water spreads, apparently that means it's done the job.
Worked.
Changing fast.
Here's a good example for all of those people, and for very good reason, let me just make that clear, who wonder why in insert whatever word would you build a boat? I mean, the time taken, the blood, the sweat, yes, the swear words and the tears. I mean, why would you do it? This is just a small example of the satisfaction that it gives making something with your own hands and have it turn out exactly how you want it, and the initial brief reward of being able to install something really is very, very satisfying. And of course, down the track, whenever you look at something, you just have that thing in your head where you look and you think, I made that. And so here we are, just at one small part of the boat where I've put together these two shelves. This is the bottom one. This is 18 millimeters marine ply, and it's been strengthened with this beam on the bottom. And the reason for that is because this is where the house batteries are going to be stored. So this needs to be strong. As you can see, I've just got a little tail on this corner here. That's just to make it easy to remove it by lifting it up once it's in. Because once it's in place, you can't get your fingers under anywhere to lift it. So that's just been screwed in with a 316 self-tapper screw, and I can put it in. Nice snug fit. And here's the seat top. This is 12 millimeters, and as you can see, I've also got a stiffening piece. This seat's probably going to cop quite a bit of abuse with people standing on it and using it to get in and out around the table. Nice. And just to explain, once the batteries are in there, I will actually be fitting a nice big solid piece of rosewood across the tops of the batteries, and then I'll have a locking mechanism on either side of the panel so that that rosewood will just move sideways, and then it can be lifted out and back in. Now, because I don't know the height of those batteries at the moment, that work will be saved until I do have the batteries. And so because of that, I don't need to have that bottom panel fixed to the whole floors, because once that timber beam goes in holding the batteries down, that will obviously put pressure on the floor holding it in place. There will be a vent in the front side of the saloon seating panel, but I may also put somewhat of a regulation diameter hole through into the galley there. I'll also be having a latch on the leading edge here and a little keeper on the back of this seat panel so that that, when down, can be locked in place. It's a little bit tricky to get this whole berth in the view where I want to work on it. Suffice to say, this is the single berth upside down. Here's that lovely big rosewood beam that'll go along the edge, and then the other two pieces at each end. It'll just make it easier to fit this beam in the saloon area here with more room, and I can rest it up on the saloon tops. The ends, however, I'll actually fit to the bulkheads, and then once this beam is fitted, I'll just lift that into place. just to mention again regarding at the steel build phase that I had all these cleats fitted in the build stage, so I was thinking about all of this fit out work so that I didn't have to try and come up with ways to join things to the hull once everything was painted like it is now. And as you saw, this cleat here had a clamp on it. It was holding that little shim that I've glued in place because for whatever reasons that one just came up at 3mm low. Otherwise though, they've all come up pretty damn level. I'm thinking that this is going to be another oh yeah baby moment. Oh yes everybody, this is another one of those oh yeah baby moments. That looks a treat. Everything's fitting very, very snugly. All the joints are nice and tight. Well, the fun doesn't stop there. Another example of the rewards when you're building with your own hands and seeing it materialise. Now that I've been getting this last batch of fit out work in place, it's tripped thoughts that I need to solve answers for other things. And this is another side of the enjoyment from my point of view. So what I'm referring to, as you'll remember from the last video, I hadn't mentioned the venting for these tanks. The reason for that was because I hadn't quite solved how I was going to tackle that. On the one hand, it might seem like a very simple fix. Just drill a hole, pipe and a vent. Job solved. That would work if you're on land, living terrestrially. Not the case in a boat. There's always so much to consider when being on the water in a boat. So the basic options are to run a venting hose up to the side deck height, and a lot of people do that. Others run hose to be vented in the sink. Others have, and I'm sure there's a whole array of other solutions for how to do this. Whilst enjoying doing some research about this over the last few days, in considering the options that I've seen, I do like the idea of having a vent hose make its way to the sink. Now, the important considerations with venting tanks is, first of all, you need to vent them. There's no way you can draw water off without replacing that with air so that the pressures equalise. You need to fill the tanks, which means that whatever air is in the tanks being replaced by water needs to be able to escape. And of course the filling will be from the side deck's height. Now, one problem with that is that if you can imagine, you're filling up a tank from deck height and you're on your own, and so you can't see the filler hose, which will actually be behind cupboards anyway, although simply by opening a cupboard you will be able to see these filler hoses and they're transparent. So that establishes the importance of venting the tanks. Where the problem comes into it is that that vent hose, if it gets full of water, can leak out into the boat. Now, it's not really an issue from the point of view of sinking your boat. All things considered, for a boat like Mistress with this volume of water, that's not really going to be an issue. But it is an issue to have water leaking, dampening things that you wouldn't even see, and obviously just making a wet mess. So I need to solve what's going to happen with the end of the vent hose. And that's why some people have their vent hoses led to the sink, so that if you overfill the tanks and it starts filling up both the filler hose as well as the vent hose, it doesn't spill over into the boat, it spillovers into the sink, which to me is a very good idea. Another problem is when the boat is heeling over. If you can imagine the boat's heeling over to port side here, if that vent hose runs along the hull with the movement of the boat as well, you can imagine that water sloshing and slopping around inside the tank and pushing water, even if it's only small amounts, along that vent hose quite possibly to drip out the end. And I just don't want to have any water inside of Mistress that's not meant to be where it might get. That reminds me of a very good saying. Vessels are designed to either keep water in or out. So as I mentioned, I like the idea of running the vents to the sink. The port side here is a real easy fix. It would just come out of the top of the tank, through this main bulkhead, through the cupboards, led up along this breakfast bar part of the bulkhead, and I would have the vent fitting itself tucked right underneath the top so that you wouldn't even see it. And if it spilled over, it would just dribble straight over into the sink. The main issue is the starboard tank. And on thinking about it, the best I've come up with is to run the hose similarly to the port side, where it'll come out the top just next to the suction hose point, and then on the starboard side do a big loop up to the side deck, back down, and then it would run parallel with the suction hose, making its way all the way to the sink, where I would have it joining with the port tank vent hose so that they would both be venting at one fitting here. That's my solution. If you have any other good ideas, please let me know. Like everything with boats, there's just so many different ways to do things, so many different opinions, so many good ideas. So feel free, if you have a good solution, leave a comment and share what you know. I am so ready for this. This is what I call party time. Yeah, that, folks. That's what I'm talking about. Ooh. And do you want to see another bit of goodness regarding the berth? Yeah, let's do it. The bunk's not finished, but you tell me, people, what does that look like? I'm happy with it, that's for sure. That has come up, once again, exactly as I planned. I don't know, you tell me, people, is this looking good or what? Because in my eyes, I'm very, very happy. Well, I've definitely got what I was after. It's kind of almost a sight for sore eyes to see some finished stuff. I'm happy with it. It's the right foam, high quality coverings. Thanks once again, Heather. And durable. Won't absorb moisture, but will breathe. Hopefully these give me years and years of good service. And hopefully they seat hundreds of people as Mistress wanders forward across the oceans. So it's not completed yet, of course. So stay tuned for the rest of that story in the next episode, everybody. And I get started on those vent lines. I still need to make up the backs, which I've actually started to do. Please like, subscribe, hit that bell, and share. I'd really, really appreciate that.